Many older men move through daily conversations assuming that when a woman asks them a simple question, it is nothing more than casual politeness. A question about what you do for work, how you spend your free time, or what you think about a certain topic can feel ordinary and routine. But in many situations, these small questions are actually the safest and most natural way for someone to begin exploring a connection. People rarely walk up to a stranger and clearly announce their curiosity. Instead, they open the door gently. A question becomes that door. It invites conversation without creating pressure, and it allows the other person to respond at their own comfort level. The interesting part is that many older men answer quickly and move on, never realizing that the question itself was the moment of interest. Human interaction often begins quietly. It begins with curiosity, observation, and a desire to learn more about someone without stepping too far outside social boundaries. When someone asks you something thoughtful, they are not only gathering information, they are observing your attitude, your presence, and your ability to engage. That small exchange becomes a window into who you are. Another important layer to understand is that questions allow people to evaluate personality without appearing intrusive. When a woman asks about your opinions or experiences, she is often paying attention to how you respond emotionally. Are you calm and thoughtful or distant and dismissive? Do you seem comfortable sharing your perspective, or do you quickly shut down the conversation? These responses reveal much more than the answer itself. In fact, the tone of the interaction often matters more than the content of the words. Many older men miss this because they focus only on the literal question. They provide a short answer and assume the conversation has served its purpose. But for the person asking, the purpose may be entirely different. The question may be a quiet way of testing whether conversation flows easily between you. When you respond with curiosity, warmth, and a bit of openness, something subtle happens. The conversation gains energy. It feels natural rather than forced. And that energy is often what keeps people talking longer than they expected. The truth is that curiosity is rarely random in social settings. People tend to direct their attention toward individuals who spark a sense of comfort or intrigue. Questions become a tool that helps them explore that interest without risking embarrassment or rejection. For older men who are unaware of this pattern, these moments pass by unnoticed every day. They interpret curiosity as routine small talk and move on with their day. But when you start paying attention to the intention behind questions, you begin to notice a different layer of communication. You realize that connection does not always begin with dramatic signals. Sometimes it begins with something as simple as someone asking what you enjoy doing on the weekend or what you think about a particular idea. These moments are not meant to be overanalyzed or exaggerated. They are simply opportunities for genuine interaction. When you slow down and engage with presence, the conversation becomes more meaningful for both people involved. What once seemed like a small, forgettable question can become the beginning of an unexpectedly engaging exchange. One of the most common misunderstandings older men experience in social interactions is assuming that curiosity from a woman is simply politeness. Many men have been conditioned to believe that if someone is interested in them, the signal will be obvious and unmistakable. They expect clear compliments, direct attention, or something that feels openly expressive. However, real life rarely unfolds in such a straightforward way. Most people communicate interest indirectly because it feels safer and more respectful. A woman may ask what you enjoy doing outside of work, how long you have lived in the area, or what you think about a particular topic. These questions may appear simple, but they often carry a deeper purpose. They create a pathway for conversation while allowing both people to remain comfortable. The difficulty is that many older men answer politely and quickly move the conversation forward without recognizing that curiosity itself is meaningful. In doing so, they unintentionally treat the moment like routine small talk instead of an invitation to share more of themselves. The result is that a potentially engaging conversation ends before it truly begins. Another factor that contributes to this misunderstanding is the tendency to underestimate the value of maturity and life experience. Many older men assume they are not the focus of curiosity in social environments, especially when interacting with younger people. Because of this assumption, they interpret questions through a lens of modesty or self-doubt. Instead of seeing the question as genuine engagement, they dismiss it as friendly conversation that holds no deeper meaning. But curiosity does not always follow expectations about age or social roles. Often people are drawn to qualities like calmness, confidence, and thoughtful communication. When someone asks about your perspective or experiences, they may simply be interested in hearing how you think. The problem arises when the response becomes too brief or guarded. If a person senses that their curiosity is not welcomed or expanded upon, they may naturally shift their attention elsewhere. Awareness changes this dynamic entirely. When older men recognize that questions can be a sign of authentic interest, they begin responding with more openness and presence. The most important insight here is that meaningful interaction grows through engagement, not assumption. When someone asks you something, they are offering a small opening for dialogue. The goal is not to interpret every question as something significant, but rather to remain attentive to the flow of conversation. If curiosity continues, if the questions become more thoughtful, or if the person listens closely to your responses, it often indicates that the interaction matters to them. At that point, the best response is simply to participate fully. Share a little more about your experiences. Ask a question in return. Allow the conversation to develop naturally rather than shutting it down too quickly. Many connections fade before they even begin because one person assumes nothing meaningful is happening. Yet in reality, the foundation of connection is often built from these very small moments. When curiosity is acknowledged and reciprocated, what once seemed like simple politeness can transform into a conversation that feels genuine, relaxed, and unexpectedly engaging. Human communication is rarely as direct as people imagine. Most individuals prefer to express curiosity and interest in ways that feel emotionally safe. This is where indirect communication becomes important. Instead of stating their intentions openly, many people rely on subtle signals that allow them to observe how the other person responds. Questions are one of the most common tools used in this process. When a woman asks about your experiences, your thoughts, or the way you approach certain situations, she is often doing more than collecting information. She is observing your reactions, your tone, and the way you handle conversation. Indirect communication creates a space where both people can explore interaction without pressure. If the conversation feels comfortable, it continues. If it does not, the interaction can fade naturally without anyone feeling exposed or embarrassed. Many older men overlook this dynamic because they expect communication to be more straightforward. They may interpret questions as routine small talk rather than subtle social exploration. As a result, they sometimes miss the deeper purpose behind the conversation. Another important aspect of indirect communication is emotional safety. People naturally protect themselves in social environments, especially when they are meeting someone new. Direct expressions of interest can feel risky because they invite the possibility of rejection or awkwardness. Questions, on the other hand, create a softer approach. They allow someone to engage while maintaining personal boundaries. For example, asking about your hobbies or your opinions on everyday topics provides insight into your personality without placing either person in an uncomfortable position. This method of interaction also allows the person asking the question to evaluate whether the conversation feels balanced and respectful. If the response is warm and thoughtful, the dialogue often continues. If the response feels distant or dismissive, the interaction may slowly come to an end. What is fascinating is that many older men answer questions in a very practical way, focusing only on the information requested. While there is nothing wrong with this, it can sometimes limit the depth of the conversation. When someone senses openness and curiosity in return, the interaction becomes more dynamic and engaging. Understanding indirect communication does not mean analyzing every word or assuming hidden meanings in every interaction. Instead, it encourages a greater awareness of how people naturally connect with one another. Social interest often reveals itself through patterns rather than dramatic signals. If someone consistently asks thoughtful questions, listens carefully, and continues engaging in conversation, it usually reflects genuine curiosity about who you are. When older men recognize this pattern, they can respond with greater presence and attentiveness. Rather than giving short answers and moving on, they can share perspectives, experiences, and ideas that keep the conversation alive. This approach transforms a simple exchange into a meaningful dialogue. In many ways, indirect communication is simply a reflection of human caution and respect. People want to explore connection without creating pressure or discomfort. When you understand this, conversations begin to feel less mysterious and more natural. What once appeared to be ordinary questions may actually represent someone's quiet way of discovering whether a deeper conversation is possible. One quality that often goes unnoticed in social interactions is the quiet strength that comes with confidence and calmness. Many older men do not realize that the way they carry themselves can naturally attract curiosity from others. Confidence at this stage of life is rarely loud or attention-seeking. It tends to appear through steadiness, patience, and a relaxed presence. When someone speaks calmly, listens carefully, and responds thoughtfully, it creates a sense of emotional stability. People often feel comfortable around individuals who give off this type of energy. This is one reason conversations sometimes begin with simple questions. A woman might ask about your opinion, your experiences, or how you approach certain aspects of life. These questions are often a way of exploring the depth behind that calm presence. They are not dramatic signals. Instead, they are quiet invitations to learn more about the person behind the composed demeanor. Many older men overlook this because they assume attention must be obvious to be meaningful. In reality, curiosity often appears in subtle ways, especially when someone senses a grounded personality worth exploring. Another important factor is life experience. As people grow older, they accumulate stories, lessons, and perspectives that cannot be learned quickly. This depth often makes conversations more interesting and engaging. When someone asks about your experiences, they may be curious about how you see the world. They may want to understand the journey that shaped your outlook. Yet many older men respond with modesty or brevity because they do not want to appear boastful or self-focused. While humility is admirable, it can sometimes limit the richness of a conversation. Sharing a thoughtful perspective or a meaningful experience can transform a simple exchange into a memorable interaction. It allows the other person to see more of your personality rather than just hearing a brief answer. Confidence does not mean dominating the conversation. It means being comfortable enough to express your thoughts openly while remaining respectful and attentive. When that balance is present, conversations often develop naturally without any effort to impress. Calmness also plays a powerful role in how conversations unfold. In a world where many interactions feel rushed or distracted, a steady and attentive presence can feel refreshing. When someone senses that you are fully engaged in the moment, it encourages them to continue the dialogue. This is why questions often lead to deeper conversations with people who remain relaxed and present. They create an atmosphere where curiosity can grow instead of fading quickly. Many older men underestimate how influential this calm energy can be. They may believe that social interest depends mostly on appearance or social status. However, emotional presence often carries far greater weight in real conversations. When you listen carefully, respond thoughtfully, and allow the discussion to flow naturally, people feel heard and respected. This simple dynamic can transform ordinary interactions into meaningful exchanges. Confidence and calmness do not demand attention. They simply create the conditions where curiosity and connection can develop on their own. Curiosity is one of the most natural ways people begin conversations, especially when they want to understand someone better without creating pressure. This is why many interactions start with simple questions. A woman might ask about your work, your interests, or what you enjoy doing during your free time. On the surface, these questions appear casual and routine. However, curiosity-based questions often carry a deeper purpose. They allow someone to gently explore whether a conversation feels comfortable and engaging. Instead of making bold statements or placing emotional expectations on the interaction, a question invites dialogue. It allows both people to participate naturally. Many older men overlook this subtle dynamic because the questions themselves seem ordinary. They answer briefly and assume the conversation is simply part of everyday politeness. Yet curiosity rarely appears without a reason. When someone chooses to ask about your perspective or experiences, they are often opening a small pathway toward connection. The key is not to overinterpret the moment, but to recognize that curiosity is often the beginning of meaningful dialogue. Another reason curiosity-based questions are effective is that they reduce social pressure. Direct expressions of interest can sometimes feel uncomfortable, especially in early conversations. Questions create a softer approach. They allow someone to learn about you while keeping the interaction relaxed and respectful. For example, asking what motivates you in your work or what hobbies you enjoy can reveal important aspects of your personality. At the same time, these questions give you the opportunity to express yourself without feeling examined. This balance makes the conversation feel natural rather than forced. Unfortunately, some older men treat these questions like quick checklists. They provide short, factual answers and move on without expanding the conversation. When that happens, the interaction may lose its momentum. Curiosity works best when it is met with engagement. Sharing a small story, offering a thoughtful opinion, or asking a related question in return can keep the dialogue alive. In many cases, the conversation becomes more interesting for both people involved when curiosity flows in both directions. What makes curiosity-based interaction powerful is its ability to reveal compatibility over time. As questions and answers move back and forth, people begin to sense whether their communication styles match. They notice whether the conversation feels easy or strained. This process happens naturally, without either person needing to force the interaction. For older men who become aware of this pattern, everyday conversations begin to feel different. Instead of viewing questions as routine small talk, they start to see them as opportunities for genuine exchange. This does not require exaggeration or performance. It simply requires attentiveness and openness. When someone asks about your ideas or experiences, responding with a bit of warmth and curiosity shows that you value the interaction. Over time, these small moments of engagement create a comfortable rhythm in conversation. What began as a simple question can gradually evolve into a discussion that feels meaningful and memorable. Curiosity is often the quiet starting point of connection, and recognizing its role can transform ordinary interactions into something far more engaging. Emotional intelligence plays a powerful role in how people understand social interactions. It is the ability to notice subtle signals, interpret tone, and respond with awareness rather than assumption. In many everyday conversations, people communicate much more through their attitude and engagement than through the exact words they speak. When a woman asks a thoughtful question, emotional intelligence helps a person recognize that the moment may hold more meaning than simple politeness. It encourages attentiveness to how the conversation unfolds. Is the person listening closely? Are they asking follow-up questions? Do they seem genuinely interested in the response? These small details often reveal whether curiosity is real or simply part of casual interaction. Many older men miss these cues because they focus only on the literal content of the question. They answer briefly and move on, assuming nothing significant is happening. Emotional intelligence changes this perspective by shifting attention toward the overall experience of the conversation rather than just the words themselves. Another aspect of emotional intelligence is the ability to respond with presence. When someone senses that you are truly engaged in a conversation,